Welcome to today's deep dive. So we are opening up a blueprint today for a really specific, almost mind-bending place.
Yeah, it really is. It takes all of our baseline assumptions about human nature and just, well, it flips them entirely upside down.
Exactly. And just to be super clear, right up front for everyone listening, we're not doing like a historical biography today.
Right. No history lesson today.
Yeah. We are looking exclusively at a guide to an imagined world. It's outlined in our source document as The World of Nelson Mandela.
And it's a theoretical society built completely on the ideals he championed.
Right. It's this blueprint where the ultimate goal, the whole point of this society, is that justice is restored through forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that freedom is built for everyone.
Which is just a radical departure from how our world usually operates. I mean, think about human history or even just, a middle school cafeteria.
Oh, no, the cafeteria is brutal.
It really is. Because the default operating system there is usually power. It's about who is the strongest, who has the thickest walls, or, who can hit back the hardest.
Yeah, it's like this endless game of tug-of-war, and everyone just ends up covered in mud.
Exactly. And this document explicitly rejects that whole operating system. It's like building a city, but instead of steel and concrete, you're building with invisible forces. Trust, memory, empathy.
Which honestly sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
So I think before we can figure out what, a normal Tuesday looks like for a citizen in this world, we have to understand their foundation.
Right. We have to look at their core beliefs. What do they actually think about human nature?
Yeah, because the very first rule in their code is freedom without justice is not real freedom.
And logically, that makes perfect sense. Think about an environment where you technically have the freedom to speak your mind.
Okay.
But if someone harms you for doing that, and there's no fair system to hold them accountable, meaning no justice, then your freedom is basically a ghost.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's just an illusion on paper, like a totally hollow promise.
Precisely. You are only as free as the justice system is strong.
Okay, that I can wrap my head around. But it's the next two beliefs on this blueprint that really trip me up, because they go against, every survival instinct.
You're talking about the beliefs on change and revenge.
Yes. The document states that these citizens believe people can change even after great harm, and also that reconciliation is stronger than revenge.
Which is wild to think about, I know. But those two principles are deeply connected. Let's look at the psychology of revenge for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
In our reality, hitting back feels like strength. If someone wrongs you, your immediate instinct biologically and socially is to make them hurt just as much.
Right, you want to balance the scales.
Exactly. But what actually happens mechanically when you do that?
Well, you end up trapped in the loop. I hit you, you hit me back harder, then I get my friends involved, you get yours involved.
And suddenly it's a massive drain on your time, your energy, your community. Revenge is actually super fragile because it's an infinite loop of resource depletion.
It's just a leak in the boat.
Yes. And the citizens in this imagined world, they recognize that. They see that retaliation doesn't fix the leak. Reconciliation is the only mechanism that actually stops the cycle.
It stops the bleeding entirely.
Right. And they can only do that because they build their society on the premise that humans are not fixed in their worst moments. If people can truly change, then that loop can be broken.
Well, wait. How do they stop people from just taking advantage of that? If I know I can do something awful to you, and the rule is you have to reconcile with me because I can change what stops bad actors from just causing chaos.
That is where their fourth foundational belief comes in. It acts as their safety net. The belief is dignity belongs to every person.
Okay, dignity. That sounds very polite and abstract. How does that actually work in practice?
Let's ground it in a gritty scenario. Imagine someone in this society steals someone's livelihood or causes real deliberate harm.
Okay, a major offense.
Right. Maintaining their dignity doesn't mean the community just ignores the crime. They absolutely face consequences.
They still get in trouble.
Yes, but the community's response isn't to strip that offender of their basic humanity in the public square. They don't humiliate them. They don't erase their personhood.
So they address the theft, but they maintain the thief's human rights. That's like a hard structural floor.
Exactly. Because the moment you decide that anyone can have their dignity stripped away for any reason, you've introduced a virus into the system.
Oh, I see. Because then you're saying dignity is conditional.
Right. And if it's conditional for the thief, it's conditional for you.
Wow. Okay, structurally that makes sense.
Yeah.
But man, living like that day to day seems exhausting.
It definitely requires a lot of intention.
Yeah, because the blueprint talks about their daily habits. It says they want a fair society, they want to be heard, and they want to heal from the past without forgetting it.
Those are their core daily motivations, yeah.
Right. But then it says they practice things like listening before they judge and speaking truth without hatred. I have to stop right there.
It sounds impossible, right?
It's totally impossible. If someone betrays a really deep secret of mine, I cannot just speak calmly to them like a robot. Expecting someone to speak truth without hatred just sounds like, I don't know, bottling up your anger until you explode.
And that's a supernatural reaction. If they were just suppressing their anger, you'd be absolutely right. It would lead to a massive psychological explosion.
Right. You can't just pretend you aren't mad.
But the blueprint has a crucial mechanism to prevent that. It's in that phrase you just read. To heal from the past without forgetting it.
I am so stuck on that idea. Because usually society tells us to forgive and forget. And if you don't forget, people say you're holding a grudge.
Yeah, our world loves toxic positivity.
Yes. Just smile and say no worries, even when you're hurt.
Exactly. But that has no place in this imagined world. Forgiving does not mean amnesia. They remember the past with crystal clarity.
So they actively keep the trauma front of mind.
They do, but they change its function. They use the memory of the harm as a map rather than an engine.
A map, not an engine. Okay, you got to break that down for me.
Yeah. Sure, so if the memory of the harm is your engine, it's driving your actions. Hatred and anger are fueling the car, and they are steering you right toward revenge.
Okay, that makes sense. The anger is in control.
Right. But if you shift that memory to become a map, it simply informs you of the terrain. You say, look, this terrible betrayal happened. I remember it. You remember it. I know exactly where the pitfalls are in our relationship now.
Wow.
But I am choosing to navigate forward without letting the anger dictate the speed or direction of the car.
That emotional separation is amazing. So you're speaking the truth just to establish reality, not to inflict a wound.
Exactly. The hatred is no longer driving the car.
But to pull that off, to feel safe enough to put down your weapons and just use the memory as a map, you would need an environment that actively protects you while you do it.
You need incredible leadership.
Right, and the text specifies this. It says they have leadership that serves, not rules. And I'm guessing that isn't just like a catchy slogan for a campaign poster.
No, it is the cultural thermostat of the whole society.
A thermostat?
Yeah. If leaders model active listening, if they show absolute commitment to equality before the law, they remove the existential panic from the citizens.
Because in our world, people usually scream and yell because they're terrified the system is going to ignore them.
Right. They feel like they have to make a massive threatening noise just to be seen.
So if the system is fair, you don't need to burn the building down just to get people to look at a broken window. You can just point to it.
Exactly. You trust the leadership to address the window.
Okay, but empathy and fair leaders don't just magically fix a broken window. If this is a practical blueprint, there has to be a mechanical process for dealing with actual messy conflicts.
There absolutely is. The document outlines a really deliberate 5-step growth engine.
A growth engine, I like that.
It's a chronological process for moving from division to unity. And the summary line for it is, from division to unity, the leader shows the way, the people build the future.
Okay, I'm looking at the blueprint for these steps now, and the sequence is fascinating.
Walk us through it.
So step 1 is acknowledge the injustice. Step 2 is speak truth and listen. Step 3 is forgive and reconcile. Step 4 is build together. And step 5 is create a better future.
It's a very logical progression.
It is. But what stands out to me immediately is step 1, acknowledge the injustice. That seems to be the step that everyone in our actual reality tries to skip over.
Oh, completely.
Like, we just want to jump straight to step 4. Hey, let's just build together. Let's get over it and move on.
And that is exactly why so many communities or group projects or friendships fracture permanently.
Right.
You can think of step 1 like treating a badly broken bone.
Ooh, okay.
If you skip acknowledging the injustice, it is the equivalent of slapping a plaster cast over a bone that hasn't been reset.
So the cast makes it look fixed on the outside, but underneath, it's healing totally wrong.
Right. And the pain doesn't go away just because you covered it up. You have to endure the sharp, agonizing pain of resetting the truth before actual healing can start.
That makes so much sense. If society refuses to say, yes, this specific harm happened, the person who was hurt can't ever really relax.
Exactly. The human nervous system simply cannot calm down its threat response until its reality is validated. Step 1 forces everyone to agree on baseline reality.
Okay, so once you reset the bone, you move to step 2. Speak truth and listen. And the phrasing there is really deliberate. It's a two-way street.
It's not just a monologue.
Right, there's an ear on the other side. You aren't just shouting into the void.
And the inclusion of the word listen is what makes this an actual engine. Because listening is a deeply vulnerable act.
Especially if you're the one who caused the harm.
Yes. When you truly listen to someone's truth, you are allowing their reality to alter your own perspective. It requires suspending all your defense mechanisms.
Which takes incredible discipline. You have
Yeah.
to sit there, take in the map of the damage you caused, and not immediately, reach for an excuse.
Right. No, yeah, but aloud.
Wow. And only after that exchange happens, the speaking and the vulnerable listening, can you unlock step 3. Forgive and reconcile.
Notice the placement of step 3 there. Forgiveness is not demanded at the beginning.
Right. It's not a prerequisite. It's the result of the first 2 steps.
Exactly. Which completely changes the pressure on the person who was harmed. You aren't telling them to forgive someone while the injustice is still being actively denied.
That is huge. It really honors the emotional timeline of human beings.
It does. And once that reconciliation occurs, you have a solid foundation. The swamp has been drained. Now and only now can you move to step 4. Build together.
Because if you try to build a project or a friendship with someone who still fundamentally denies your reality, whatever you build is just going to sink into the mud.
It will collapse under the weight of all that unspoken resentment. In this Mandela world, unity is never treated as magic.
That's not just a good vibe you wake up with one day.
No, it's treated as a highly technical construction project. It requires sequencing, emotional labor, and immense patience.
It's heavy lifting. It really reframes peace. It's not just the absence of conflict. It's the rigorous, active process of moving through these 5 steps.
And once you build together, you finally reach step 5. Create a better future.
You've established a totally new baseline.
Right. It's a mechanism for continuous societal evolution.
Okay, so we've explored the foundational beliefs, we've looked at how they process trauma without toxic positivity, and we've broken down this rigorous 5-step engine.
But there is one final layer to this blueprint.
Yes, the ultimate philosophy that ties this entire universe together. The source document highlights one overarching big idea. It states, freedom is meaningless without the freedom of others.
And it clarifies that by adding, our freedom is incomplete without the freedom and dignity of everyone.
Which is, man, that's heavy.
It is perhaps the most profound paradigm shift in the entire document. It requires us to completely reevaluate what the word freedom actually means.
Right, because I think about how we define freedom in our everyday lives. It's almost always a solitary individual thing.
Very individualistic.
Like, if I have enough money, and I have my own car, my own house, and I can do whatever I want without anyone telling me no, I consider myself free.
Right. It's almost like freedom is defined by how high a wall you can build to keep the rest of the world out.
Exactly. Autonomy through isolation.
But this imagined world looks at that wall and declares it a prison in disguise.
A prison?
Yes. They redefine freedom as a vast, interconnected network. It's a team sport, if you will.
So if I'm sitting inside my walled garden, and I have all the food and security I could ever want, but I know the person outside my wall is trapped or mistreated, my own freedom is fake.
According to this blueprint, yes.
But why? If I'm not the one who is trapped, why is my freedom an illusion?
Because in this worldview, you are surviving, but you are not free. Think about the psychological burden of maintaining that wall.
Okay, yeah, you have to defend it.
Constantly. If your freedom is isolated, you live in perpetual fear that the people outside the wall will eventually climb over it.
Oh, well.
And furthermore, if the system you live in allows the person outside your wall to be stripped of their dignity, you are participating in a system where dignity is conditional.
We're back to that safety net.
Exactly. If dignity can be violated for them, the concept itself is vulnerable, which means you are vulnerable.
Because I'm only one stroke of bad luck away from being the person on the outside of the wall.
Precisely. Therefore, protecting the rights of everyone, which we saw in their daily habits, is not just an act of abstract charity. It's not just the nice thing to do.
It is a mechanism of self-preservation.
Yes, you protect their rights because your rights are literally tethered to theirs.
That alters your entire motivation for being a good citizen. The game only truly ends, and safety is only truly guaranteed when everyone crosses the finish line.
That is why the freedom of the individual is mathematically incomplete without the freedom of the collective.
It's just a beautifully closed loop. It takes that selfish instinct we all have for personal freedom, and it brilliantly redirects it. It forces you to advocate for your neighbor just to secure your own life.
Which brings us right back to the leadership that serves model. That is the only type of leadership that functions here.
Right, because a leader isn't trying to hoard freedom for themselves at the top of a pyramid.
Exactly. They are acting as a weaver. They are maintaining the tension of the net that supports the entire structure.
It really makes you pause and evaluate the invisible architecture of your own life.
It definitely holds a mirror up to how we handle conflict every day.
So let's bring this all together for you listening right now. We have spent this deep dive exploring the world of Nelson Mandela, not as a history lesson, but as a meticulously designed blueprint for how humans could choose to operate.
It's a society where anger is deliberately replaced by the heavy lifting of active building.
Yeah, where listening is quite literally treated as a superpower,
Hmm.
and where revenge is exposed as this resource-draining weakness.
It is a world that demands rigorous honesty about the past, but completely refuses to let that past dictate the future.
So the challenge for you today is to look at your own life and figure out where you can apply this blueprint.
Think about that five-step engine.
Right. Acknowledge the injustice. Speak truth and listen. Forgive and reconcile. Build together. Create a better future.
Where could you initiate step one right now?
Maybe you have a disagreement with a friend that's been lingering awkwardly, or there's tension in a group project at school, or a deep division in your local community.
Instead of slapping a cast over a broken bone or pulling harder on the rope of retaliation.
What would happen if you paused, validated the reality of the harm, and started doing the real structural work?
It requires immense courage to look at a fracture and not look away, to use the memory of the conflict as a map rather than an engine for hatred.
But as this blueprint demonstrates, it really is the only mechanical way to construct a relationship or a society that actually lasts.
It's the only way to build something that won't eventually sink into the swamp.
Exactly. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Think about that big idea we just discussed.
Yeah, the concept of interconnected freedom. If this world's blueprint is right, and your personal freedom is truly an illusion, truly incomplete without the freedom and dignity of everyone else,
It's a powerful question.
who in your daily life might be waiting for you to help them get free so that you can finally be truly free yourself?
A really profound thought to carry with you.
Keep questioning the architecture around you, keep building better foundations, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.